Welcome to Married to History, where we try to be informative, entertaining, and family-friendly.
Aloha, I'm Christopher. I have a fancy piece of paper on my wall that says that I know more about history than most people do.
I'm Shirley. I'm a homeschool mom that relies on good curriculum, Christopher, and Google to teach our kids history.
Google's going the way of the dodo, you know. I hear these chatbot things are taking over. Before we get into our episode, let's take a minute to talk about something from a past episode. It's important to keep in mind that Shirley doesn't warn me about our topics beforehand.
Yep, it's fun for me to see what he knows right off the top of his head, and that means sometimes we miss things. If you would like to hear a more comprehensive and well-prepared episode on any topic, just let us know. So, honey, what have we learned since last time? You were telling me about Emperor Hirohito.
I was reading up on him the other day, and I encountered some stuff that I hadn't seen before. So, as far back as I can recall, my understanding of Emperor Hirohito during the war years, well, and even preceding the war years, World War II that is, was that he was just a figurehead. He had no real power. He had the respect and the reverence of the people. They would do things in his names. They would, arguably, or at least culturally, they were supposed to do whatever the heck he commanded them to do because he was the boss. But in reality, it was the military that had control of the Japanese government at the time. This is largely to the case of that samurai spirit was still active in Japan, and I don't remember exactly what the year was off the top of my head, but during the space in between the 1910s and the 1930s, Japan was having some problems. The people weren't very happy, and it was a group of cadets from the military academy, I believe both Army and Navy cadets, who assassinated the Prime Minister. And upon doing so, the military was celebrated as heroes. And this is what, at least this is one thing that enabled the military to kind of take over the government. So my understanding was that the Japanese government was effectively just a military oligarchy made up of top army generals and admirals from the Navy. But of the two, the generals had, the army had the more power.
Okay.
But, and this was an idea that had been maintained for ever since the war years with that. Yeah, the emperor was a figurehead. He had no real power. The army and the navy were calling all the shots, and that was it. But some new schools of thought are suggesting that, okay, no, the emperor actually did have a heck of a lot more say and involvement in a lot of these things.
Okay.
Supposedly from journals that were written by contemporaries that were on the imperial staff or that were present at some of these meetings say that, no, the emperor was there. He counseled, and in some cases it was even his suggestions.
Yeah.
Apparently he gave the okay for the attack on Pearl Harbor, for one thing. Supposedly he gave the okay for some of the crimes that were committed in the Chinese invasion, and not the least of which was the ever-famous rape of Nanjing, but also some of the experiments that... can't remember what Unit 751 or Unit 271. I don't remember what they were called. This was the Japanese version of the scientists that were doing all kinds of crazy, evil, wicked, horrible, awful things.
Okay.
So supposedly he had authorized some of those as well.
So he wasn't just a figurehead.
And there were a couple of other things too that I read that were very interesting. So I'm curious to see and to read some new studies on this, because that would change very much what we know about how things were conducted, how things happened in history. This is one of the things I like history about, because like, ooh, we got some new information now. I want more of that so that we can better understand, okay, so what actually happened?
Yeah.
I mean, this was one of the things that got me interested in history in the first place, was when I had a narrative in my mind, and then all of a sudden I found out that, well, actually, these other people believe that, no, this is the way that things happened. And that just fascinates me, the different stories. So, yeah, I want to know these things.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. There was something that I had learned, we had learned also. We were listening to episode 11, which was about Gilgamesh as a family. And you remember what Tertius decided to Google?
No, I don't remember.
So episode 11 is where I said that, I don't remember how we got on this topic, but I said that he wanted to skydive, and I told him he couldn't.
Oh, yes.
So...
You're going to share this?
Yes, he'll be disappointed if I don't share this information, because he has brought it up like 3 times since then.
And I remember so many enjoyable conversations that we have had as a family on this subject since then.
Yes. So Tertius looked it up, and according to what he found, you have a 0.0007% chance of dying while skydiving. but who have a 0.0167% chance of dying in a car accident. So you are much more likely to die of a car accident than
Keep
skydiving.
in mind now that these were the studies that were conducted by a, what is he, 12? By a 12-year-old. So let us not have any of our listeners believe that our statistics are something that you should use to inform your decision about the merits of skydiving and or driving your car.
But it convinced him enough that he is now thinking that it's safer to skydive everywhere than it is to drive. You know, just get in a plane and skydive to the store when you need to go grocery shopping.
I remember, and we have enjoyed so much tormenting you with this.
I refuse to believe that his statistics are correct.
Honey, I've said it before, I'll say it again, you're sounding much more and more like an like a science denier.
How dare you? All right, one more thing. I had wondered why they called the Manhattan Project the Manhattan Project, and it actually made sense. They had their headquarters in New York, and they were working with companies that were in Manhattan.
I remember you mentioned that.
Yeah. So that's all I had.
You wanted me to talk more about that town, so
yes.
I don't have any more information than I think I shared the last time that we talked about that fake town where it was constructed. But you had pointed out, because you were curious about it, that you found it was in Tennessee. What was the name?
Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and you found out that it was actually a real town.
Yeah.
But that the government bought all the land, kicked all the people out, and
they eminent domained that place. Yeah, so it wasn't a fake town, it was a secret town, because it was like, people weren't supposed to talk about what was happening inside the town. But yeah, they were doing
one of those
nuclear
towns.
research. All right, well, honey, I have a history question for you.
I love history questions.
Why didn't Lewis and Clark just take the train?
That hurts.
What do you mean it hurts? I'm asking a question.
Why don't you ask me why didn't they just fly? I mean, after all, Lewis can fly.
Sorry,
Clark could fly, couldn't he?
Why not? Okay, what about cars? Surely they had buggies.
All right.
At least.
So, believe it or not, cars have not always been here.
No.
Nor have trains. So, I'm struggling to remember. I want to say the first train engine, or at least steam engine, that Watts kicked out. Watts is the guy who is credited with he did not invent the steam engine, but he's the one that came up with the design that made it a heck of a lot more efficient and allowed people to start using it for other things. Originally, they were just built to pump water out of mining tunnels.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, he improved the design so that it was much more efficient, could make it smaller also, and could apply it to other purposes. But if I remember correctly, he didn't do that until the 1820s. I want to say 1821 is when he made his first engine. I do not remember the years of the Lewis and Clark expedition off the top of my head, but that followed after the Louisiana Purchase, which was in 1803, I want to say. So the expedition wouldn't have been that much farther.
Wait a handful of years. They could have taken the train.
Would have been a lot more than that, because the Transcontinental Railroad was not finished until 1867. So that would have been a 60-year wait. I don't think either of them survived to see that day.
Seriously?
And the people who were building the train tracks wouldn't have known where to go if Lewis and Clark hadn't mapped out the area.
Are you telling me the Transatlantic Railroad followed Lewis and Clark's precise maps, their routes?
No, they had better maps, but the better maps only came from the people that followed other people who followed other people who followed Lewis and Clark's maps.
Okay.
Well, to be fair, Lewis and Clark, I think, followed at least a couple of other people's maps, too.
All right, so 1804 is when Clark and 30 members set out.
Okay, so yeah, that would be
Illinois.
the year after the Louisiana Purchase.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they couldn't have taken the train because the train wasn't even invented for another 16 years.
There were 0 trains.
There were
Completely.
0 trains. I'm pretty sure there were 0 trains before Watts made his engine.
Okay.
And even then, when Watts did, the first ones were small. And they couldn't go very far.
Well, you don't need it very big for just 2 people. 3 people, I guess, if they've got Sacagawea with them.
Didn't you just say they had 30 people?
I don't know. They dropped them along the way or something.
You literally just read it.
Wait, so... Okay, no, real question, though.
Yes?
Lewis and Clark expedition.
Yes.
I know they had Sacagawea with them.
Not for the whole thing.
So they picked her up along the way.
Yeah, they picked her up, I want to say, somewhere in the Dakotas, somewhere in the far north.
They also had a slave with them, right?
They had at least one, yes.
Okay. Did they have a huge party? Because I only think of, like, the Lewis and Clark expedition that's, like, a handful of people, like 4 people. That's it.
Huge is in the eye of the beholder, but from what you just, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but from what you just read, I believe you said they had at least 30 people.
Yeah,
with
but
them.
did those 30 people stay with them the whole time?
No, some of them would have died, some of them would have quit, some of them, I don't know how many of the original party actually made it all the way back. I know the gist of their course. I know some of the problems that they had along the way, but I do not know the names of all the people that went with them and of all the people that eventually returned.
Oh, okay. So do you want to tell me about Lewis and Clark, or do you want to tell me about trains?
You tell me. You are my link to the fans, what the fans want. What do you think they want to hear more about? Do you think they want to hear more about trains, or do you think they want to hear more about Lewis and Clark?
I don't know. What are you more knowledgeable about? Because I know nothing about either of them. I'm giving you a choice today, honey.
Okay, fine. Well, I wouldn't say I'm very expertise in either of them, but I suppose we could talk about Lewis and Clark because they had some more fun stories than the original Days of Trains.
I love fun stories.
I'll tell one story that I've always loved about the original Days of Trains, and then we can talk about Lewis and Clark. As is the case with a lot of new technology, when trains are starting to come about, you got some people that are seeing them saying, "Oh, yeah, these things have potential," and other people that come along saying that my horse works perfectly fine. Why do I need to use your newfangled thing? We
still have that today anytime there's new technology.
Yes, we still have that today. And more than anything else, I think the Army, or at least historically, the Army has been very big on that thing. You know what a Tommy gun is, right?
It's like a machine gun?
Yeah, the Tommy gun. That's the mobster gun of the 1920s.
Oh, yeah.
And almost everybody knows about the Tommy gun. Believe it or not, we could have had those during World War I. They were invented to be trench guns. The idea was that a soldier was going to take that Tommy gun, jump on top of the trench, and would just be able to mow everybody in the trench down with that Tommy gun.
But we didn't use them?
The Army thought that, why do we need those things? Our single-shot rifles are perfectly fine. Why do we need something so ridiculous?
Stupid. That is so stupid.
If I remember correctly, France actually bought at least 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
But they sat on the docks for the whole war, were never unpacked.
Oh my god.
So that's one example, and then before that, I remember when they started making guns that used bullets, smokeless cartridges that we know about, which were much more efficient. You could fire faster. The Army again said, "It's like, why do we need those things? I mean, if you get rid of the smoke, then how are our soldiers going to hide behind the smoke?"
Oh my gosh! But the enemy can see the smoke too. They know where to aim.
Anyway, we're way off subject. The point of my mentioning
people
those stories
don't like technology.
Yes, people are not keen to embrace new technology, even if it does look like it's going to be more efficient.
Yeah.
So, and as far as trains go, there's a story where we know, all right, there was a challenge. There was a race between a train and a horse. The train drivers wanting to prove that, our thing is more efficient. We can beat the horse. Mm-hmm. The train lost.
Okay.
Because I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was some kind of mechanical problem.
Oh.
Either ran out of fuel or something broke, and the horse just kept running by.
Of course.
Yeah.
Just as easily could have happened to the horse. The horse could have tripped or something.
Just as easily, the horse could have gotten hurt or something to that nature, and the train would have won. Well, arguably. I wonder which would have taken longer, to get a cart out there to haul the dead horse away to the finish line, or to fix the problem on the train and haul it to the finish line. That might have been an interesting story. All right, so one of my favorite stories about the early days of trains.
That's cool.
So, getting back to Lewis and Clark, so...
First of all, hold on. You said Lois a second ago, and that made me think, did the writers of Superman...
I'm pretty sure.
Seriously?
I don't know, because I am not one of the writers of Superman.
What are the chances? Because I know it's not Lois, it's Lewis, but that's awfully close.
Yes.
That's cool. Why isn't one of their friends named Sacagawea? Or what was...
Talk to the people what was the other guy? Superman. Okay, so to be clear first, are you talking about the Superman comic books from the beginning, or are you just talking about that show
no, the
called Lois and Clark with Dean Cain and what was her
name? No, original Superman.
Okay. I have no idea. Do you know when Superman was first published? The 30s. Idea. I wasn't there to ask them, hey, I don't even know if Lois was in it. It was in that first issue.
Well, you're a historian. You're supposed to figure
all
this out.
Comic book historian. I don't even like Superman that much.
The other guy I was trying to think of was York. That's the only African-American member of the party was York. And apparently he was there the whole time.
Cool.
Okay, anyway, so educate me.
All right, so... After the Louisiana Purchase, which is, to the best of my knowledge, is still considered the greatest real estate deal that's ever been done.
Heck yeah, he got it for pennies.
Yeah,
All that land.
And I might be remembering this wrong because it's been a while. I want to say he got it for like 15 cents an acre or something to that nature. It was some
Yeah.
absurdly low price
Yeah.
per acre. And this was a bit of a controversy too because there was a lot of argument in the United States government about whether or not he actually had the authority to do this.
He being the president.
The president, yes. If I recall correctly, there is nothing in the Constitution that says the president has this power. I don't remember exactly what argument Jefferson used to okay the matter.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I read up on anything like this. It might have been that he technically didn't do anything within his law, but just Congress never ended up stopping him in the end. Or it might have been that this was one of those cases where he applied that, but the Constitution doesn't say I can't do it,
Right.
so I'm gonna.
Right.
Whatever the case is, for about $15 million. So this is a story in itself. Originally, Jefferson just wanted to secure American trade rights and travel rights on the Mississippi River.
Okay.
If you're going to do that, you have to be able to go in and out of New Orleans because that's the gateway onto the Mississippi River out to the Atlantic, well, to the Gulf of Mexico and then to the Atlantic Ocean. So originally, he sent his diplomats to the revolutionary government in France because this was before Napoleon came to power. I remember correctly, it was before Napoleon came to power.
Yeah.
And the goal was to just buy, with $10 million, buy secure trade rights through the city of New Orleans, or maybe even buy the city of New Orleans itself for the $10 million. The negotiations fall through. That's a whole nother story on its own. After some years go by, and Napoleon is now the one in power. Napoleon's plans for setting up a new American empire for the French falls apart. So this time, when the diplomats arrive to Napoleon and their goal again is to buy the city of New Orleans, Napoleon basically says, "You know what? Make it 15, and you just have the whole thing, all the Louisiana territory." So they jumped at that.
That's a deal. You can't say no to that deal.
Well, then Jefferson didn't say no to that deal, but there were plenty of people, at least in Congress, who said, you can't say yes to that deal. That's outside your authority.
But he got it on sale. I understand that. It's on sale. Do I need it? No, but it's on sale.
And you realize by advocating this, you're saying that, okay, it is okay for our president and whatnot to break the law, to violate the Constitution, if it's a good deal.
If it's that good of a deal.
All right, let's just hope the next time that a president breaks the Constitution, you think it's that good of a deal instead of, a JIP deal.
Yeah.
All right, so anyway, territory's been bought.
Yes.
So now, Jefferson needs to know, all right, what is out there?
What the heck did we just buy?
Honestly, nobody in America really knew what they were getting.
Yeah, of course.
And the primary goal of the expedition was this was still a point in history where people were convinced there has to be a Northwest Passage.
Right.
We might have talked about this before, but
we haven't.
Okay, the Northwest Passage was the idea that there has to be a water route. A water route that goes from the Atlantic to the Pacific that does not involve sailing all the way down around Cape Horn in South America or sailing through all that Arctic water in Canada. But it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But once again, people didn't know that, and it was thought commonly that the Mississippi was one of the best choices because, after all, she was a freaking long river with an awful lot of connections.
But it's going north to south.
That doesn't mean that at some point or another there was a branch of her or a source. They didn't know what her sources were back then that would connect some way, somehow to the Pacific Ocean.
Okay.
So that was the primary goal of the expedition. And, of course, they wanted to know other information about the area, too. I don't remember which one. One of the two of them was a botanist of sorts, or at least as a hobby. And so he brought things with him for taking samples and collecting seeds and whatnot. So it was a very well thought out expedition. So they started going up the Mississippi River. There were a couple of places where they ran out of waterway, so they'd have to carry their boats and whatnot to as they continued exploring. I don't remember all the details. Sometimes they encountered friendly natives and they were able to trade. Sometimes they encountered less friendly people that they weren't able to trade with. I do seem to recall one of the things that I found fascinating a couple years later. I got a hold of an article that I believe was written in the time of Lewis and Clark that was talking about one of the things he brought with him. Believe it or not, he brought effectively a BB gun with him.
Why
He brought an air rifle. It was a pump action air
Wait.
rifle.
Did they bring real guns too?
Oh yeah, he brought real guns too. This was kind of
So
like
why-
this was kind of I don't know what the word it is, like a promotional thing. He brought it along and he showed it off and people thought it was cool. But if I remember correctly, there's no accounts from anybody that was on the expedition, even himself, that he
Yeah.
ever actually used it to do any hunting or
Then
defending themselves
why?
from it. It was a cool thing
It
to
was a
bring with them
toy.
and
He
to
brought a
show off
toy.
to people.
You brought a toy.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what you do, especially when you're an explorer. You bring along cool stuff that you can show off to people so that people think you're cool.
Okay.
So, anyway, Sacagawea joins the group. When they get further north, they meet a Frenchman who's living among the Native American population up there, and he has a wife, Sacagawea, and she, I don't remember what the terms of the deal was, but some way, somehow, it ends up that she becomes their guide.
Yeah.
Because it's at that point when they meet her that they stop going in a northerly direction, and they, if I remember correctly, specifically start going west.
Right.
And I don't remember where it was. I want to say that this was somewhere in the Dakota area, maybe Montana. And then Sacagawea is with them all the way as they cross and get to the Pacific Ocean in Washington.
Yeah. Wait, they do make it all the way to the
They
ocean?
do make it all the way to the ocean in Washington. Now, obviously, they failed in their venture of, they've figured out that, okay, there's
Yeah.
not an all-water passage, but they do get all the way to the end of the territory, though technically that wasn't theirs.
That was past
territory,
Louisiana territory.
That was past Louisiana territory, so that would still have been British territory at the time. But they get all the way there. I don't remember how long they stayed. Eventually, they realized that, okay, they have to get out of there, and they have to get out of there fast because it became obvious that they were surrounded by hostile natives. Some of their stuff regularly
Yeah.
was disappearing during the nights. A lot of their horses started disappearing also.
Yeah.
So they realized, okay, yeah, we got to get out of here. So
Yeah.
they turned around and they made their way back. I do not know off the top of my head any of the exploits along their way back. I don't remember if they stopped by Sacagawea's house and dropped her off first and then continued their journey, or if she went with them all the way back to the United States. I don't remember off the top of my head. About Sacagawea, though, I do seem to recall that she was pregnant
Yes!
during the expedition.
on
and
the commemorative dollar, it has her with a baby on her back.
okay, yep.
She freaking had a baby, and women are amazing.
Yep.
That's all I have to say about that.
And one of the reasons why Sacagawea was the guide was not just because she knew some of the natives in the area. Well, it was because she was married to a Frenchman. She could speak French. I don't remember who, but at least
Yeah.
one or two of the people amongst Lewis and Clark's expedition were able to speak French, so that's how they were able to communicate.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anything
Yeah.
else?
Off the top
Wait,
of my head,
so-
no.
So did their expedition? So they didn't find the Northwest Passage, but was it useful? What did when they made it back? What was done with that information?
I do not remember what all they just they would have given their reports to nature societies. They would have given their report to the president as well.
Yeah.
And with what they shared, the United States would have had an idea as okay, what kind of land was out there. This is
Yeah.
probably also one of the reasons why not too many people went out that way, though, because even though this was land that was available for poor people if they wanted it,
Yeah.
their reports would have indicated that it was not I'm probably getting some of my history mixed up. I think the reports would have indicated that it was not the safest area for people to start settling. Most of the settlement in the area that they explore doesn't happen until the Civil War era times.
So that's
Or I shouldn't say
how
Civil
many
War.
decades
A
later?
lot. There's not the drive for people to go out and settle in that area until after the Civil War with the Homestead Act.
Okay.
Before that, you do get some settlers out there because people are eventually going to start settling in places like Missouri and places like Illinois,
Yeah.
Arkansas. But there's not a great big massive push for people going out that direction and settling out there until after the Civil War is over. And again, that's largely thanks to the Homestead Act.
And that's how much later?
The Homestead Act is post-Civil War.
I need to know years.
So, I don't
How
remember-
many decades?
I don't remember the year of that. So that's the 1860s, the
Okay.
late 1860s, when they
like
start
60
to realize
years
that
later.
okay, we need to start getting people out of the east of the country, and we need to start getting them to go west.
Time to
Because
spread.
there is some motivation to go west early. If I'm mistaken, the first real drive to get people to finally start wanting to go west, and by west I mean like further west than the Mississippi is because of the California gold rush. People want to get to California,
right.
so some people are taking their chances crossing all the way over, and not all of them make it. Some of them stop along the way.
Yeah.
Or after the gold rush run in the in 40, it starts in 48, even though they tried to keep a lid on it, so that's why we say it started in 49, because that's when word
really
finally gets
boomed.
out. Or at least that's when the government confessed that it was out there. But yeah, again, you don't see another wave of people actually going out that way and now like stopping and settling in that middle interior until the Homestead Act.
So you mentioned that other people would have done exploring and stuff too at some point after Lewis and Clark.
Because there were some people that were doing some prospects out in that area as well, because because the land was available. So anybody who had an entrepreneurial spirit or was just poor and wanted to try their hand out there could go out there and try to make something of it.
It's just hard for me to understand how useful one expedition could be, because you can't exactly draw a map with one path. They really didn't see that much of a country.
That would be correct. Yep, they did not see thoroughly the area of the country. That's why after the Lewis and Clark came back, and when they are starting to build the Transcontinental Railroad, you have prospectors going all over that territory trying to chart it, because now they actually need to find the places where they can build the railroad through. And if Lewis and Clark had done an extremely thorough job, then none of those surveyors would have been necessary, arguably. But at the same time, that wasn't Lewis and Clark's purpose. They weren't looking for a land route to get through all that. They were looking for a water route, so there was no reason for them to stray too far from any bodies of water.
I think that's something that I never understood. I always had it in my head that they were just supposed to go explore the West. But that would have taken them years and years of doubling back and crisscrossing to actually get a good idea of what was out there. It's a big country.
Yep.
But that wasn't their goal.
No, their goal was to find the Northwest Passage.
And they failed.
They failed, not because they were incompetent, but because it didn't exist.
Why didn't at some point we just build a Northwest Passage?
Are you familiar with how expensive it is to build canals?
Well, is it more expensive than building trains?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Why? It's just a ditch. Can't we, I know.
Are you familiar with the building of the Panama Canal?
Vaguely.
Are you familiar with the building of the Erie Canal?
More vague.
Okay.
Oh, no, hold on.
Very, 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 very... Okay, well, let's go with the Panama Canal, since that is the one that actually allows Atlantic Ocean to Pacific Ocean travel.
But they have a unique issue because you have to have the locks to get higher and then lower. So you have a lot of mechanical issues. I'm just saying, dig a ditch. Reroute a river. Why couldn't we just reroute a river up north?
Still, okay, you are...
What?
I can't say that you are oversimplifying it, because you haven't
mentioned
any stats or whatnot, but trust me, it is not that simple. So, yes, people have rerouted rivers often enough. This is done when you're going to build a dam. You got to get the water out of the way so that you could build the dam, and then you make the water go back to the way it was. But it is not just as simple as, okay, you get a couple of guys out there with a shovel and you tell them to start digging. First off, it needs to be dug in such a way that the hole will be wide enough and deep enough for boats to be able to go down it. So we're not talking like a kindergartner with his toy shovel out there just digging a little line for his paper foam sailboat to be able to go around the yard. And in the case of the Panama Canal, to give you an idea, they could have done the simple version of what you're wanting to do, in that, okay, yes, they could have just digged and blasted. They would have had to blast, because often enough times the ground you need to get through is rock, not dirt that you can just shovel out.
They had dynamite.
Well, not in Lewis and Clark's time, they didn't.
But after that, when they were building the trains, they had dynamite.
Yes, after that, when they were building the trains. But I already mentioned that it was easier and cheaper to build trains than it was to build canals.
Okay.
So, with the Panama Canal, they could have done that, but it was too expensive to dig and blast a completely level path through that whole thing. So that's why they did the locks. Not because, oh, we want to, but because we're never going to get this done if we don't. Because it's hard to dig through or blast through that much rock.
Sounds to me like they were looking for the quick solution instead of the best long-term solution.
I probably need to back up a little bit on this. Throughout history, this is one of the things that I really, really try to stress with all of my students. Throughout history, water has always been the best way to travel.
Right.
It is the most efficient way to travel. You can sleep on a boat while it's sailing or going down the stream or whatever the case is. It's the easiest, most effective way to move things throughout man's history.
Right.
That is why, even in Lewis and Clark's time, they are still looking for the North-South Passage. Now, when the trains come along, this is the best chance in all of human history that humanity has for finally getting something that competes with water travel. I want to be clear, even today, with how effective trains and cars and even airplanes are, water is still number one. Water is still the cheapest, most effective, efficient way to move stuff around.
Then how come Amazon packages come on a plane instead of a boat?
Because
down
Amazon
river?
packages don't... Oh my goodness. Because the Amazon packages don't have to cross the freaking ocean.
Sometimes they do. They come from China.
And I'm sure when they do, they are on a boat.
Are they? They put them on a barge instead of a plane.
Oh, okay. Well, if it's a single package, probably on a plane. But more often, your Amazon package that you're getting, China probably put 1,000 of those on a boat, and then a warehouse on this side is mailing it to you. Maybe even by plane.
Okay.
It remains that water is the most efficient way, and water is the method that mankind, therefore, has always looked for in finding transportation routes. So, when in the United States they realized that, okay, we don't have water routes everywhere we want to go. They experimented with the idea of building canals. The Erie Canal is probably the most famous example of that. There was no natural waterway to get stuff from the area of around the Great Lakes region to New York or the East Coast where all the factories were. So they built the Erie Canal so that they would have this direct route. It goes from the Great Lakes to the Hudson River, and then I think it's the Hudson, and then down at the Hudson River to any places along the East Coast where they might need the stuff that they're getting from there. But even though the Erie Canal works, and I believe it still works today, I could be wrong about that.
I have no idea.
But even though they were able to get it done and they were able to use it, it was not the most cost-efficient project. They recognized that, okay, we can't do this everywhere. We certainly can't do this to build a Northwest Passage across the entire country.
That's a bummer.
Yes. Sometimes geography is like that. It doesn't always... The mountains aren't always willing to lay down for us. The rivers aren't always willing to go where we want them to go.
I feel like you're quoting a song.
While we have the ability to reshape them or redirect them here and there, those have usually been little changes here and there. Not massive changes here and there.
I suppose. But lots of small changes add up to big changes.
Yes, lots and lots. I don't remember the number off my head, but several 100,000, if not million people died building just that little tiny Panama Canal that didn't come even close to the 3,000 or whatever miles across for the United States.
They also had to deal with like malaria and dengue fever or whatever because of just their climate. We wouldn't have had to deal with that here in northern America.
Yeah, because nobody got sick building the Transcontinental Railroad. There's not a single case of diarrhea or dysentery or anything like that.
I'm sure there wasn't. Not at all. Nope.
People like you are the reason why history is ignored by too many people.
Why do you mean people like me? People like me are trying to learn history.
Are you trying to learn, or are you trying to say, oh, it's stupid, I don't need to learn about this? Our ancestors were stupid because they didn't know about airplanes. Why did Lewis and Clark just wait for satellites to come out? Why did they waste their time?
Why didn't they?
My goodness.
They could have created weather balloons or something.
Give me strength.
Hot air balloons. When were hot air balloons invented? Could they have taken a hot air balloon across America?
I don't remember when hot air balloons were invented, but they were using weather balloons before the 1860s.
Oh my gosh!
They might have been using weather balloons. I think they had weather balloons and they were using them for observation amongst other things, even in Napoleon's time. So they might have had the ability to use a weather balloon for Lewis and Clark's expedition.
They should have done that.
I wouldn't be surprised, however, if they ruled that out because they realized, hey, we can't bring the equipment we would need to keep this up for the entirety of the expedition.
It's just hot air. You just need fuel.
And fuel requires storage space. Fuel must be transported. The wind blowing you controls what direction you're going. It doesn't control getting up again if you start to go down.
Well, then, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we've established very much that you don't know.
They'd be able to see more of the country from up there. They could actually draw a good map. Don't just stare at me.
I yield to your superior knowledge. Yes, they should have taken a balloon with them because they could have drawn a better map.
I'm glad you recognized my superiority.
Oh my goodness. You are superior in many things. Not necessarily all of them meritable.
Can I get that in writing? I'll take it.
That you have many not meritable features.
No, you said I was superior in many things.
Not all of which are meritable.
So
or admirable. That's the word I'm looking for.
Just delete that part.
Oh, there are so many things I wish I could delete right now.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, then please subscribe, tell your friends, and give us a 5-star review.
Yeah, if you like hearing a wife torture her husband, yeah, good on you, you masochists. Or no, sadists. If you'd like to hear a future episode with more information about today's topic, contact us on Gmail, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at Married to History Pod.
Also, please contact us if you have a silly question idea or if there's something from history that you would love to learn about.
Just be sure to specify in your message if it's a silly or serious, because we don't want to treat a genuine quest for knowledge as a joke.
You need to remember that.
Some people do.
How do you know I'm joking? I actually want to know these things.
It's the face. The face tells me everything, and I once again wish that this was a video cast so that people can see.
Talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye. I don't even like Superman that much.
Wow.
I'm not. In my opinion, Superman is too OP. In my limited exposure to him and his comic books, the case has always been that either he's so overpowered of whoever he's fighting, or the villain puts kryptonite on him, and then he's completely and utterly useless. So there's like no balance. There's no struggle or anything to that nature.
Yeah.
But then, as I said, my exposure to his comic books and whatnot is limited.
I'm sorry.
Are you, though?
No, I'm not.